Begin the current and penultimate Daf and Mesech's Beitzah Daf on the test, 10 lines down at the top of the Yommi. We continue on the theme of the previous Mishnah, discussing the halachas of Tchumen as it relates to the laws of Yom Tov, and specifically as it relates to different partners and who exactly is the owner of this thing and what defines the Tchum. This corresponds to today's Daf. Something we discuss in today's Daf are a continuation of the discussion, like we said, of Tchumen and Yom Tov, and the proper Tchum boundaries for jointly owned items. So in the key terms of the concept we discuss are Me'ilah, which is the law of misappropriation of hektish, but specifically it has to be something of substance to be considered as Me'ilah. Hefker is something that's an ownless object, and hence as it relates to the laws of Tchumen and regarding ownership, regarding Nedarim, and if it's considered as forbidden for someone else. Bereira, we mentioned in the previous dafim, is the halacha of retroactive verification. If you're making something dependent on something, and then ultimately you end up taking a part of it, do we say that that was always your part, and just we didn't know about it at the time, but retroactively that's what was always yours? Kalbain is when they would go ahead and give their maftzah shekel every single year, so they have to give a little bit more as a for the exchange of the currency. That was the obligation of the kalbin. Ma'aseh behema is the 10th of the animals of the new flock, which one has to bring as a korban, and if it develops a blemish, he could eat it wherever he wants. So we begin the current daf, Daf Yomi test, 10 lines down the top of the Amid. Begin with the next Mishnah. Again, continuing the theme of Tchumen on Yom Tov. Hagachelis, regarding a coal, is kiragli habayla. Like we said, someone's object has his same tchum. So we're saying a coal is, because we're going to differentiate between the coal and the flame. So the coal, again, is your object, so it has your tchum. The shalheves, now the flame, what does it mean a flame? So for example, let's say you lit a candle with your friend's flame, so that's b'chal makom. So you could transport that flame anywhere. It's not ma'akiv for the Isra of Tchumen to say that, oh, okay, now that flame I have from his flame, I can't go more than where his Tchum is. No, the flame is not considered something of substance to have been limited to that person's Tchum. Similarly, another ramification of this differentiation is Gechelim shel hektish, a coal of hektish, someone's maktish and there's a coal, so Moilimba, whoever has benefit from that coal, he committed Me'ilah, he has to bring a korban asham of Hasham Eilis. Now, Bishal Hebes, now regarding a flame of hektish, so initially the halacha is lo inhenet. Initially, rabbinically, you shouldn't have benefit from that flame of hektish. But if you did have benefit, lo moyelin, there's no korban me'ilah that you're going to be chai for, because again, there's no substance to a flame to say that you went and you misappropriated something. Similarly, a third category of a case. Someone carries out a coal to the public domain. On Shabbos, he does a tzah. So chayiv is mechayiv. Mishal have as pater again for the flame. You can be pater. You must explain exactly what's the case of carrying out an actual flame if there's no coal. But if you carry out a flame to Rosh Hashanah, you're going to be pater. Now the Gemara actually brings a Beitzah that expands. Turn about the Beitzah, and we had 3 cases of the chilik between gechelis and shalheves in our Mishnah. The Beitzah means chamishes and gechelis. The Beitzah adds on 2 more, 5 things. It says 3 of our Mishnah and 2 more. 5 halachas regarding a coal. So first of all, like we said, hagechel is kiragli habayla. The coal has the tchum of how far the feet of the owner could go. We're b'shalheves b'chol makom, but a flame is unlimited. It's not something of substance. It could be taken anywhere. Second, gechel shel hektish, the coal of hektish. Hektish owns a coal. Moilambud, there's a halacha of me'ilah misappropriation, b'shalheves. But regarding the flame, again, initially we don't let you have benefit, but moil is not going to be me'ilah. Third case, like we said in the Mishnah, actually this case was not mentioned. This was not mentioned in the Mishnah. Gechel shel avodah zara, a coal of idolatry, which pasuk says in Dvarim Yud Gimel, you're not supposed to have any benefit from avodah zara. So asur, so the coal is going to be forbidden, like avodah zara. But v'shal heves muteres, the flame, again, there's no substance with that's permitted to benefit from that of avodah zara. A fourth case is what we said in the Mishnah. Someone takes out the coal to Rosh Hashanah on Shabbos, but if it's a flame, it's going to be potter. And the 5th case was Hamuder Hanamechaver. If someone is forbidden based on a vow to have benefit from his friend, so he's not allowed to have benefit from his coal. But again, the flame is not considered something substance, and if you're allowed to have benefit from his flame. Now the Gemara wonders interestingly, Maishno shall heves. Avodah Zara. The Sharia, what's the difference? Why, when you spoke about the flame of Avodah Zara, if you look at the words, when they spoke about Avodah Zara, you said muteres. which sounds like it's totally permitted, that even rabbinically we didn't say some type of gezer initially that it should be forbidden to benefit from the flame of avodah zarah. Umayshno, the hektish, the asira. Why, when you spoke about hektish, you said initially it is forbidden. You said loinen and you shouldn't have benefit. What's the difference? Why by avodah zarah is there no initial problem, and by hektish there is an initial problem for the flames of their categories? So the Gemara explains. I'll tell you why. Avodah zarah de meisa, idolatry is repulsive. Ubedili and people generally stay away from it. So the gods of Rabban did not have to initially make it clear to say, oh, you can have benefit from the flame, you might end up becoming a avodah zarah. No, it's disgusting. You needed a flame, you needed to light up something, so you use that avodah zarah. So therefore we didn't initially make it exer. Hektish, the leima'is, but hektish not disgusting. And people don't stay away from hektish, as Rashi and Teiz both explain, not as much at least as avodah zarah. Because this that people stay away from hektish is not because it's disgusting, it's only because of the issur of the prohibition of having benefit. Because although generally we say that regarding chulin, people do stay away from hektish, but regarding avodah zarah, in contrast to avodah zarah, people don't stay away. So therefore, it goes to Rabban. The Rabban made a gezerah to say, okay, initially you shouldn't have benefit from the flame. But you're right, both of them it's not really, it doesn't have substance. But again, initially by the hektish we would be more machmer, and therefore we said loinen in the contrast to the avodah zarah. Now, the Mishnah had said, and the Beitzah also quoted this, we said, one of the differences between a coal and a flame was regarding Bitzah, carrying to Rosh Hashanah. So the Mishnah had said, if someone carries out a coal to the public domain, it's going to be chayav for Bitzah, but for Shalom's part, if you carry a flame, you didn't violate the malacha of Bitzah. So the Gemara wonders, there seems to be a contradiction, because Vatani Litna Bryce says exactly not like this. The Beitzah says, "Hamiti shall have this kol." If someone carries out a flame, whatever size it is, meaning without any measurement, no minimum, chayiv is gonna be chayiv. So the Beitzah clearly contradicts our Mishnah that there is a liability by Bitzah for carrying a flame. So Mavshesh says, "I'll tell you why." The Beitzah is talking about kikun shetziu b'kesim. We're talking about that you took it out with a twig, with a splinter. Since the flame has something to hold on to, it's significant in even a minute amount. Our Mishnah that said that you can be potter for the flame is like the Gemara is going to explain later on, is what's called adiyaduye, which is that the person had a flame in his house, in his courtyard, let's say, near the Rosh Hashanah, and he blew it with his hand, and he went and he threw the flame, and it blew into Rosh Hashanah. So he legit only carried a flame from Hitzah, from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. That's who can be potter. The Bryce is talking about you carried it out on a splinter, on a piece of wood, on a twig. Oh, that gives us chashibas to have flame of dibur g'michayim. Sigmar says, wait a second. If it's on a toothpick, but typically mishum kesim. Why are you coming to tell me this big chiddush in the Brysa that if you carry a flame of g'michayim, because there's a chiddush because the flame really not carrying anything? What do you put out the flame michayim for the kesim, for the toothpick? What do you have to tell me regarding the flame? Says the Gemara, no, but the less like shiur. We're talking about where actually the toothpick does not have the minimum measurement for the liability of Bitzah on Shabbos. It's not like we mentioned Masechta Shabbos, where they go through the whole list of all the different things that, what's the minimum measurements. So the Mishnah there says, if someone carries out wood, is only Kedei Lavashal Be'ekala. You're only chayiv for Bitzah on wood, which is what a toothpick is made from, only if it's the amount of cooking an easy egg. What's an easy egg? An easy egg is the easiest one to cook from all the eggs, which the Chacham evaluated that is the egg of a chicken is the easiest one to cook, and how much wood you need for that is more than a small toothpick. So you wouldn't be chayav for the wood, but yes, you would be chayav for the Shabbos because it's significant, because it's held on to something. That's one shot. Another interpretation, Rabbi Shloimy says, why does the Beitzah say you're chayav for hitzah the flame if our Mishnah says you potter? He says it's going to shayfe mana mishcha. We're talking about where you smeared oil on a vessel, the itli beinura, and you went and you lit a flame on that shard. So since the flame is something to hold on to, it's considered significant. Now, as Rashi points out, well, why is this any very different than the first shot of a toothpick? Toothpick versus a shard smeared with oil? So actually, Abai didn't hold on the first answer, because since the toothpick is very small, it's going to go out, it's going to extinguish very quickly. It does not give the flame significance, and actually you would not be chayav. Or actually, no, to the contrary. Abai is saying a bigger chiddush, that even an earthenware shard, which it's really not really holding on to the shard, it's like the guys by the chasna who lights up his hat on fire and he's dancing in front of the chasna. His hat is not on fire. He just took that aerosol spray or whatever he did and he went and he lit it on. It's just inside. He roasted the earthenware shard is not really in the earthenware. It's just that he smeared it with oil. So maybe you would say that wouldn't be so significant because it's not really holding on to something. He's saying even the bigger thing, even that's going to be considered tzah. So again, that's two interpretations why Abai is saying a second shot. But being that the Gemara says, but typically mishamana. Again, similar question we asked in the first shot. Why are you saying for the flame Yechayiv? You be chayiv because you're taking out the earthenware vessel. Says the Gemara, no, it's not a vessel, it's b'chaspa. We're talking about a shard of the vessel. So the Gemara says, okay, the table is b'chaspa, but you're taking out earthenware shard. You should be chayiv mitzvah for that. So the Gemara says, no, but blessed shiur. We're talking about where there's no measurement. You don't have the minimum of an earthenware shard that you'd be liable for. What's that minimum? It's not like we're Mishnah Masechta Shabbos. Cheres, earthenware regarding Haitzah on Shabbos is kedelitin bein patzim lechavere, is the amount of how much you would put of an earthenware between one board and another board. Meaning, their boards that were made out of wood, so they would organize the boards going from bottom up, and it was on two sides, and sometimes they were too narrow in their width, and they would have two side by side, and you had to have that they would be even, so that one shouldn't be lower down and shouldn't be too deep down, and when one starts tilting, so you would put beneath it an earthenware shard or a stone to even it out, or similarly is, let's say it's not wide enough, the two of them, so you wanted to separate one from the other a little bit, you'd put a piece of earthenware, that's a thin piece of earthenware between them. Again, you're basically using it as like a placement, place a holder, like either evening it out or separating them, and that's the significance of a piece of earthenware, to be chayv and haitzah, divrei Rabbi Yehuda, and here, it's such a small piece of earthenware that even though you have a flame on it, the earthenware itself wouldn't be significant on its own. And if that's the chiddush, we're saying no, it's for the shalheves, but you mean chayv shalheves because you're taking it out with something else. So the Gemara wonders, okay, wait a second. So then that's how you explain to me the Beitzah. Beitzah says you mean chayv shalheves because it's holding on to something. But then this that we learned in our Mishnah, Hameitzah shalheves potter, that if you carry out a flame, you're going to be potter. Teich mishkav. So you're carrying it in your hands. You're obviously carrying it on something else. But you're telling me anytime it's holding on to something else, you can be chayiv for the flame because it's chashuv. So then what's the case of my Mishnah going to be potter? The Gemara says, like we had mentioned before in passing, he threw it into Rosh Hashanah, where he blew it, and the actual flame went, then it's not holding on to anything. That's the case where you're going to be potter. But you're right, if you're taking it on something else, the flame, you're going to be chayiv because it gives it a chashibus that it's holding on to something else.
Why wouldn't it be putter? Because it didn't land.
It didn't land?
I
I know, I'm saying it didn't land, and you're saying you can't land the fire. It's not a spark, it's like a flame, like a... I don't know. You can't land? I don't know. Why can't it land? It would? I'm saying if you take a... I don't know, the shayla is what does it mean, the flame? It's not sparks. It's a flame. What does it mean if you take a... Right, what you want to know, the what is it holding on to? You're saying there's nothing there. Yeah, good shayla. What would that mean? That it's landing? It has to land to be chayav or itzah. So what if not holding on to anything? I guess maybe there's not anything. Maybe it's the fire itself. What's the fire itself? What is it burning up? Maybe it's whatever that is that's burning is considered the fire. Here it sounds like something else is holding that thing that's burning up. But the thing that's burning up, a flame could jump. It could land and then start. Let's say the fire goes and starts burning. You see this by fires, right? So the whole western coast is burning up at times, right? I'm saying the flames jump and then it goes and grabs onto something else. That would be haitzah. So I mean, that would take a hold of something else.
Yisrael too is not the midrabun is not kolshi.
Midrabun if it's kolshi. Why? What do you mean? Trying to say meaning that it should be asa liketchil? What do you mean? I mean, let's say even when we're saying potter, it's going to be potter. We're saying over here. We're just talking about the chiyuv of the.
So the of the shiur,
even kolshu.
Even kolshu is not the.
Okay, let's say it is.
Gemara Shabbos has a shiur of everything.
Right, but that's for the chiyuv. That's for the chiyuv deraisa.
The rice, I'm saying. Well,
then what?
What's the question of the Yomim?
Of what? What do you mean?
It says putter.
Right. It could be that's it. It could be pata. Say pata just means to say for the chiyuv deraisa. You're not going to be chayiv for koras. You're going to be chayiv for the malacha deraisa. Now, we continue with the halacha, the next mission, which continues on this theme about that we're discussing here regarding tchumen as it relates to who is the tchum going like. So the Mishnah says, Bershel Yachid, regarding a water from a well belonging to a private person, it's correctly hayachid. So the tchum is like that individual, meaning you cannot take the water from his well further than the owner of that well can go. Now, a well that's from belonging to a city, so then it's correctly anshi oiseir. Then it goes according to the tchum of the people of that city, meaning you carry that water 2,000 amas in every direction out of the extension of however far the city extends. That you could then take 2,000 amas from that city limits. And regarding the waters that they from wells that they made for those who made the pilgrimages from Bavel, which they would travel in the middle of the road, the people from the Gullus, they needed to drink on the way up to Yerushalayim. So then correctly hamamali. So the way Rashi understands that is that according to the one who's drawing the water, because it's hefker, it's nobody's. So hefker gets acquired by when you do hagbo, when you lift it up. So if, let's say, actually someone comes and he wants to borrow that guy's water, so you could only take it according to how far that guy who actually drew the water, because it was hefker, he was kind, and now if someone borrows the water from him, he's going to limit to that guy's tchum, which Rashi says obviously not like Rabbi Yochanan that says hefti hefker are kind of shvisa for themselves in their place, because then it would have its own tchum, it wouldn't be karagli hamamali. But then says Rashi, if you're going to say, then wait a second, shouldn't we have said karagli kol adam? Like it's like the tchum of every person. Why is it karagli hamamali? Says Rashi, no, because this Tana holds yesh brera lahachmer, meaning we say retroactively it was verified that yesterday the guy that actually drew it is actually fit for him, and it was actually his. It was because what I mean, the shvisa happens when Yom Tov starts. So if you drew the water today and it was hefker, so why would it be limited karagli hamamale? Say karagli kol adam, you could take it wherever you want to. So Rashi says no. This man holds breiru lahachmer, that when he drew the water, retroactively verified that when Yom Tov started, it was really always my water, and that it has my tchum, and if someone borrows it from me, actually he can only go as far as I can go. And he says in Erevin also, the Gemara says it's not like Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri who says that it has its own shvisa, and therefore wouldn't go karagli mamale, wouldn't go according to the one who's drawing the water, it would go with its own tchum. But our Mishnah holds that it's not kind of shvisa, and therefore the one who draws it retroactively verified that it was always his, and therefore has his tchum. Now, the Gemara has the following question. Ramalei Rabba Rav Nachman. He says, Tanan, in our Mishnah that says, Bershel Yachid, the well of a private person. Kardagle Yachid has the tchum of that person, but it seems to be contradicted in the following Beitzah. The Beitzah says, Nahores HaMoishchen. Those really just refers to regular rivers, which generally regular rivers, they continue and streaming from where the source of the water is, and they keep, that's what a stream is. Now, or omayonis hanoivim, or springs that are sprouting, meaning that's just the reason why it's calling it something else. It just doesn't leave its pit to extend elsewhere. But basically, this running water, one just continues along the ground elsewhere, and one just stays in its place. But they're both running water, natural springs. Harehin karagli kolam. So there, the water has the tchum of every single person. Now, here, the way Rashi translates this to mean that it doesn't have any shvisa. Taisus elsewhere in Erevin says, no, it actually has the tchum of the first person who drew the water. Rashi says, no, it doesn't have any shvisa, not where it is in its place, not, meaning as if it would be, let's say, with chetze, hefke, let's say. It doesn't have kiragli habaylam, it doesn't go according to the owner of that spring. And it's not kiragli mamal, it's not like the one who drew it. He says, rather, anyone could take it wherever they could go themselves. The reason for this is, says Rashi, is because kol mili denaidi, whatever's in motion, in movement, doesn't have shvisa, doesn't acquire a Shabbos residence, because it wasn't static when Shabbos started. It was in motion. As Rashi says, that's how the Gemara explains in Erevin on Daf Memvav Menal. But be that as it may, the Gemara says, wait a second. You're telling me in our Mishnah that a person's well is like his tchum. Now you're quoting me a halach in the Beitzah that says that someone's spring is like Karagul Kaladim, not like him. So is it like him? Is it like the owner, or is it like someone else? Oh, so I'm a Rabba. We have a Rabba, but I don't think this is Rabba. What are you talking about in our Mishnah? Our Mishnah is talking about b'mechunasim. Our Mishnah is talking about where the water is gathered, where it's not flowing. Oh, it's not flowing, so then it's static, so it's kind of shvisa. Who's shvisa? Like the owner. That Bryce is talking about where it's flowing, so it's not kind of shvisa. That's going to be karagli kaladam. And so we learned about Shmuel says, but our Mishnah is talking about where the water is gathered, static, and therefore it's going to have a shvisa, and it's going to be like that of the owner. Now we said in the Mishnah, the next case, we said Bishal Oili Bavel. We spoke about that of the city, and then we spoke about that of the well that was made for those who come up from Bavel to Yerushalayim. So those wells are Karagla Hamala. We said that it's like the one who drew the water, it's limited to the tchum of that person. So Idma, we learned the following case. Mile v'nasan lechavdere. So the simple translation is if someone drew the water and they gave it to his friend, but Rashi explains, it has to be talking about where the guy who drew the water did it for his friend initially. Because if he drew it for himself, that's a explicit halacha in our mission that we said is karag hamamal. So based on the one that drew the water, and then if you give it to someone else, he's limited to his tchum, because like Rashi explained, we say yesh ber lahachmer, that retroactively we always knew it was his. But that's not the case over here. Here we're talking about where he drew it with the intention of giving it to his friend. We have machlekes amirav. Rav Nachman Ami says, karagli mishanis malu loy. It's going to have the tchum of the one who the water is drawn for, because Rashi explains, the guy who drew it for him was just his shliach. He was just his agent. I'm drawing it for you. Bistafolo, you don't have koyach, whatever it is, I'm drawing it for you. So he acquires it for him. So it's going to have the tchum of the one that was drawn for. Shei Shlomi says no. Karag Mamal, it's going to have like the tchum of the one who drew the water. So the Gemara says, like, what are they disagreeing about? What's the yisod of the machlekes? So the Gemara explains. Marsa Rav Sheshes, he held Beira Def Keruhu. The machlekes essentially was, how do you qualify this pit of the oily rikol, of the oily bubble? Sheshes held that the pit was hefker, meaning it was nobody's. So it was hefker for free one. It's free for all. Now there's a unique halacha in Bab Metzia that most children know because everyone learns Bab Metzia of what's called Hamagbi Metzia L'Chaveira. If someone there's a lost object that's ownerless, and somebody picks it up for his friend, says, I don't need this. I already have a fossil watch. Someone I found one. Says, oh, I know Chaim Yankel, he always looked at my watch, he was always jealous, he wants one. I'm picking it up for him. So Allah is loy kana chaver. That friend did not acquire it. As the Gemara says about Mitzvah Daf Yomi, because this is what's known halach as Toifis lebal chayiv b'makim shechav la'acher. Now, that literal translation actually means to say, if let's say there's a debtor, this guy owes the whole town money. This guy has 30 creditors, right? And he's not paying anybody. So someone says he's going to take the law in his own hands. He finds that debtor and he grabs for one of the creditors. Says, you owe this guy money. This was gifts you give him to the shul. Come here, I'm taking that $1,000. I'm giving it to this creditor. So the problem is it's chav la'acher, because you grabbing for this guy, there's 29 other guys waiting to be paid also. That's what's called taifas b'chalev. You're grabbing for one creditor, but chav la'acher. So that doesn't work because you're meriting one guy, but you're causing a loss for all the other people. So here also, when you're picking up the mitzvah for your friend, you want to be mezakeh him, yeah, but everyone else on the planet is losing out now because they're not getting that because you're giving it to him. Oh, so therefore, Rav Sheshes held that it's going to be karagle hamamale because the guy you're doing it for cannot acquire it. Because that's, again, that's my he's not going to acquire it. So he does. It's not karag mishlas malay. It's going to be like karag lemamale. So the one who picked it up, he picked it up, so he's going to acquire it. It's going to be like his tchum. Whereas Umar Saba, Rav Nachman held, no, bear the shutvihu. You're misunderstanding it. The people from the diaspora, from Babel, they didn't make those wells. They dug hefker. They just gave it to that the whole Jewish people are partners in it. Oh, we're partners, not hefker. What's the difference? The difference is for this halacha. When someone tells his friend, do me a favor, get some water for me from the well, it's my water. You're my agent. Oh, so it becomes a shliach. It's not like being mitzil l'chaveri. It's not a hefkezach where you're causing loss of other people. It's a man. We all have a portion over here. Oh, so it's yours, so you're shliach. So then, it's kirag mission the small way. So you're like his tchum. That's the machlekes between Rav Sheshes and Rav Nachman regarding the oily bavel. If you're drawing water for someone else, whose tchum is it going to be? Kirag Mishnah Smell or Kirag Mal depends if you qualify the water as hefker or as shutfin, as partnership. Now the problem is Isvei Rav Nachman. Rav asked on Rav Nachman from the following Mishnah Masechtas Nar. Rav Nachman had said that the oily bubble water is partnership, not hefker. So he asked on him from the Mishnah Masechtas Nar. Mishnah says, let some guy who walks over to this guy and says, you know what, I'm done with you. We're not having this relationship anymore. I'm on you like a cherem. Like just like cherem is forbidden for a person, I'm like you on cherem. So Allah is hamuder, the one that he placed the nether on, is going to be usher. He's forbidden to benefit from the guy who made the nether because essentially we're saying that like my money is hektish on you. You can't have benefit. Fine. Continue the Gemara Talmud Beis. Let's say he says the other way around, where he says that your money is on me like a regular cherem, which is some type of a hektish form, which basically is saying which goes to bedek abayis. Oh, so therefore hanayda asa. It's basically the same thing, just in reverse. The guy who took the net is going to be forbidden to have benefit from the guy that was the subject of his vow, because the Torah says liyachal devar, you're not allowed to profane your words, which a person's allowed to make his friend's money forbidden on him. So now that he took a vow, it says your stuff is like cherem on me, so then he can't have benefit from it. Now let's say it's both ways. I'm on you and you're on me like a cherem. So shnei masurim zeh. Now both are going to be forbidden, one with the other. But, and this is what we're trying to get to, they're permitted in the items that were made by those who come up from Bavel to make the pilgrimages. Now, this which includes the wells that they dig on the side of the road. Why? Because since they were mafkarit for Klal Yisrael, for whoever wants it to take, not that they're partners, that if you're partners, then my shiur in that water is going to make it forbidden on you, and then you wouldn't be able to have any utility in the wells. No, it's hefker. So it's nothing to do with me and you. We both could have from this water because we have nothing to do with it. Whereas in contrast, but let's say in the city that we both live in, none of us could use the items of that city because we're partnership in every item in that city. Let's say it's a communal shul, and he can't use it because of that guy's chelik. You can't take off that kitzur shulchan aruch from the shelf because he also has a shiur in that. So the things from the city is forbidden because they're both forbidden from each other, but from oily bavel it's going to be permitted. And it says the halacha the Elohim dvarim shel oily bavel, says the Mishnah, and what's considered items of those of the oily bavel, which we said is hefker for klai, so it's not shutfis, it's hefker. You have Harabayis, the Temple Mount, Halashachas, the chambers, Vazaras, and the courtyards of the Beis Hamikdash, which, again, these are all hefker for klai, so no one's a partnership, no one has any ownership in the Beis Hamikdash. And the pit that's in the middle of the road on the way up to Yerushalayim. What's considered that in the city, which none of them could use because they each have a shiur in the city items. You have a Rechayiv, you have the city square, Beis HaKnesset, you have the shul, Beis HaMerkaz, you have the bathhouse. That's the Mishnah Masechtas Daf. Concludes the Gemara the question: V'iyamir. Now you begin to say like Rav Nachman that Beitzah, the pit of the oily bubble, is the shutfu. You said that it's partnership. You said the reason why it's Kedagel Mishnah Smalaloi, that you're like his shliach because we're partnership. It's not Hamekbim, it's Silach Habez, a hefker. We all own this, so therefore you could be a shliach for him. Then my mutter. Then why if a guy is muder hana, him from his friend and his friend from him, that you're telling me that they could use the well from the oily bubble? Why is that permitted? But for tonight, the Mishnah that says hashu tough in partners. If they took a vow forbidding benefit one from the other, now they'll go into their shared courtyard because of my portion is forbidden on you and your portion is forbidden on me. So here, just like we said, they're asur b'shal eisir from the city itself because everyone's portion makes forbidden the other one. So if we're partners in the pit of the bubble, because you're telling it's shutfin, so how are we allowed to go ahead and use that? Obviously, you see that it's considered a hefker, not like Rav Nachman. Says the Gemara, no. L'irchayitz bebar hachanami. To bathe in the pit, you're right. That would be forbidden because Rav Nachman held that the pit of the oily bubble is considered a shutfis. And you're right, that would be forbidden. So wait a second. So then, so what are we told about over here? I was saying the Mishnah Masechtas Daf says that the pit of the middle of the road is permitted. How could it be permitted? That's the whole question we're asking Rav Nachman. But Nachman's saying, no, it's not for all utility that's permitted. For example, let's say to go down and bathe inside of that, you're right, that would be forbidden, because it's a pit of partners and you're using his water. What we permitted was specifically lemalois, to draw from the water, that was permitted. Because we rely on the halachic principle of breira, of retroactive verification. We say that the water that I ended up taking in my jug, retroactively is verified from Shemayim that was always my portion. I'm not having benefit from you. Umar, did they come out? And what he's taking from his own portion. Now, to bathe over there, you can't say that because it's Nagam Savas. You want to know why can't you say breira that the water that you're in is that water? Christ. But it's a little bit different than at least when you're drawing water where this was always mine. I didn't have from your water. You took from your water. But to bathe inside of that would be considered my shutfi, and that would be forbidden to bathe inside. And that's where Nachman still stands correct that when you draw the water for that person, you could do that because your hishliach is not considered from hefker because it's partnership. But the Gemara rejects this answer because the Gemara says, is that really so? Your whole teretz is based on the principle that you're saying that the reason why the water from the well is going to be permitted, because even though it's really should be forbidden because we're shotfin, but Breira tells us retroactively it wasn't from the partnership, this was my water and that was your water. But Rav Nachman, you think he holds a Breira? But what's not, I'll prove that he doesn't hold a Breira. Mishnah says in Mesechta Shkalim, a little bit, again, a different concept. Every time you go in a new Mesechta, it brings up another concept, is ha'achin. Regarding brothers that are hashutaf and that are partners in their father's inheritance. So it depends. One thing on the other. Kishchayavin bekalban, when they're obligated in that extra payment of a kalban, when they're giving their machzah shekel for the year, which is essentially only chayiv, as we're going to shortly explain, when they're partners, when you have the halachic status as partners, then petur mi'mas behema. Meaning these two halachas are inversely related. When you're chayiv and kalban, you can be exempt from ma'aseh behema because actually ma'aseh behema is actually exempt when you're a partnership in an animal. Whereas when they're actually obligated ma'aseh behema, meaning to say when there's an individual owner, because even though there's two sons, but there's something called tfisis habayis that it's still like as if the father is the owner even though he's passed away. So therefore then it's like one person owning the animals and you'd be chayiv ma'aseh behema, then actually petur min kalban. Then actually they can be exempt from kalban because it's like one person paying for his children. As Rashi explains, every single Jewish person had to give a machzah shekel, half a shekel for the korbanos tzibur every single year. Now the Chachamim imposed that you have to also add a small coin, a ma'al katana, to be a kalbain for what's called prei, which is like for the exchange, because the machzah shekel are thin pieces and they're quick to get ruined and get lost. Now, sometimes they would get another reason, there's different interpretations, it could be another reason, also when you're exchanging the currency, so you pay for that exchange rate, so you give a kalbain as a compensation for that the coins get deficient, and also for the change that you're giving a shekel, getting back a machzah shekel. Now, even when two people together give a full shekel, where you would say, wait a second, we're not exchanging anything, I didn't give you a shekel, give me back a machzah shekel, so still over there's an obligation for the two of them to give their independent kalbains. Why? They shouldn't be giving less than their friends and to have hektish lose out, because ultimately when a regular person comes along, he gives a shekel, gets back a machzah shekel. So you have to give that little kalbain. So even two people together, that together say, hey, Yanka, I don't have, you want to give a shekel for the two of us, they still have to pay the extra kalbain. Now, what's different is, and that's the halacha of this Mishnah in the Mesechta Shkalim, if a father is giving the shkalim for his two sons a full shekel, so then the halacha is going to be, then he's exempt from the extra kalbain, because it's one person giving it, not two people together. It's the tata, I give for zan kinder, so then he doesn't have to give that extra kalbain. That's the halacha. Now, ma'aseh behema applies every single year by the new animals that are born that year. Now, when you have a flock of partners, let's say partnership owns this farm, two Yidden together, they buy this farm in the Allentown, New Jersey, they decide we're going to buy a farm, and they have all these animals. So they can be exempt from ma'aseh behema. Why? A Beitzah teaches in Bechayros of Menvama Beis, it says, Kolpeta sheke behema shi'il lacha. It says in the singular lach, which tells us it's only for an individual owner and not if partnership. Now, actually, the Gemara there asks, that pasuk is actually by Bechayr, not by ma'aseh behema. So the Gemara answers yes, but actually by Bechayr, and actually you can't say that it's telling you l'cha an individual and not a partner. Because actually b'chor is actually obligated when there is partnership. Because the pasuk in Devarim that says the b'chor is b'karchim b'tzeinchem, it says in the plural. So if b'chor is even obligated by plural, by partnership, then why are we saying l'cha as singular? It says if it's ein inyan leb'chor to ein l'mais, it's telling you halacha regarding ma'is behema. Now, you would think that the exemption of a partnership of more than one owner would exempt from ma'is behema even what's called b'tfisas habayis. What's tfisas habayis? For example, brothers, they didn't get a chance yet to divide the inheritance of their father. Father just passed away, they had the shiva or whatever, they didn't get a chance to go to the lawyers, whatever, and then the animals had babies. And now there's ma'is behema. What do we do? Do you think that ma'is were more than one owners and therefore you'd have to separate ma'is behema? No, it says here to tell you that since it's still the father who, it's still under his jurisdiction, although he passed away, but no one divided it yet, they're actually considered like lacha, like as if the father still owns it to be part of the ma'is behema. So that's what the Mishnah, now just to summarize again, that's what the Mishnah was saying in Masechta Shkal. If you have brothers that are partners, that they're partners after they divided already, they already split it up. They went to the lawyers, they went to the room, they already split it up. And then they became partners back again. They made it Stein and Stein. They made it like a new partnership. Oh, so that's what the Mishnah was saying, Digmichayv and Kalboin, like any two regular people that combine together to give a shekel, to give their 2 half shekels, because it's a shutfis. It's not a father giving for his sons. And therefore they can be part of a ma'is behema, because they're regular partners. Because it's no more tfisas and it's not like from the father's estate. They already divided and they just came back as partners again. Now, on the other hand, when the chayim ma'is behema, for example, if let's say they were partners because the father just died and they inherited, but it's still tfisas abayis, they didn't yet separate and divide the inheritance, so they can be chayiv in ma'is behema because it's still like one owner, it's still the father, and therefore they can be exempt from kalman because it's as if the father's still alive and his money is one, and like we said, when the father gives for his sons, he doesn't have to add another kalman. And therefore, they can be pater when they give together their shekel. That's what the Mishnah says in Masechta Shkal. Okay, but we're not finished. That wasn't the main idea why we're bringing this up. We're we're trying to ask, does Rav Nachman really hold a breira? But this is a few stages over here. So first we see that's the Mishnah of Masechta Shkal. Now, Rav Anan had said that Lo Shana, we didn't learn that if they already divided the estate, and then again they rejoined, but they already divided, that therefore that nullifies what's called tfisas abayis, the father's singular estate, from the halacha, and that we consider them as shutfin. He says no, that we're saying that if they divide and they come back, they're considered like regular partners, not like still the father's singular estate. He says that's only was taught ela shecholku, only if they were divided based on a valuation for monetary value of gedolim keneged tloim, which means to say one guy took kid goats, another guy took lambs, and we said, okay, let's evaluate this. This kid goat is worth 100, this lamb is worth 100. Okay, you get this, you get this. Or tlim keneged gedim, and this guy took lambs in place of that kid goats, where that's going to nullify the whole title of inheritance from the estate, and now they're like basically consumers because this is what we're doing. We're bartering. You get this, I get that. Now, when they go back and they become partners again, so that's like this guy bought his own from the market, this guy bought his own from the market, and then brothers have to have mixed it together and became partners. But you can't consider it as still the inheritance. It's just like it has a title of partnership. Oh, that's when the halacha Mishnah was saying over there, Masechta Shkal. But let's say divided, that you had goat for goat, which lamb can I get lamb, and lamb for lamb. That's actually how the laws of inheritance goes, where every person gets their portion of every single species. Oh, then actually, if that was how they divided it, then actually, you say, that was his portion that he was always from the beginning of the father's death was designated for him. Meaning, you call that breira. So essentially, you're still a Yarishim. When you go and you make a partnership back again, essentially you're making it back to the moment the father died. Because I redivided. This was always mine. Min Shemayim, when Yerusha starts, every single family member is going to get the same amount according to that species. And if that's how we actually divided, and then we came back together again, nothing really changed. We're really essentially still in Tfisa Abayis because he holds up Yesh Breira. Now, the main part of the question, actually, the next opinion disagrees with Rav Ana. Rav Nachman says, no, even if we split a goat for a goat, or tlem keneged lamb and a lamb for a lamb, you don't say, oh, this was the portion that was always initially his, and therefore really like we were in step one, we never really like divided because we really came back, and it's still the same because everyone was always originally going to get that, and it's just verifying that was always my portion. No. Rav Nachman says you're going to be potter from Ma'aseh Behema because you consider like shutfin, like Tvizabayis. Obviously, you see, Rav Nachman holds ein breira. So back to the question, he doesn't hold the retroactive verification. You hold retroactive verification, your whole teretz that you're answering Rav Nachman was based on the principle of, although he holds that the well of the Oilei Goyla are considered like shutfin, and therefore he says, yes, really you wouldn't be able to use the wells because if you made a neder hana from one to the other because it's shutfin and alam hana from each other if they made a neder hana. But we're talking about when you drew the water in your jug, we're saying that Breira tells me that was not yours, it was always mine. First, Rav Nachman doesn't hold the Breira. That's not a good terrorist. Can't tell me that the reason why he would say that the Mishnah was telling us that you're allowed to go ahead and draw the water, the oil bubble, even though because he doesn't hold the Breira. Like we just proved from this halacha, Mr. Mesechus Shkal. So the Gemara comes up with a new pshat. The Kul Yama, really, everyone holds, not like we said on the Manaf. Everyone holds Be'er Def Kirihi. Everyone holds that really the wells of the Ilababal are considered Hefker. And therefore, even according to Rav Nachman, the well is Hefker. And how do we know that? From the fact that we saw Masechtas in the Dharm, that if they have a Neder Hanof forbidding one from the other, they're allowed to use the well of the Ilababal. And if we're Shutfis, it would be forbidden. So obviously, it's Hefker. So wait a second, if it's Hefker, we're back to the question. Well, how do we understand then Rav Nachman that said it's going to be Karagam Mishnas Malay? I thought, I'm going to be Mitzil Chaveiroi, Lakana Chaveir. It's Hefker, and you can't be Tevis L'Machav Machrav Lachem. So you know, Elahach over here, regarding the case when you fill it up for your friend and you give it to him, that Rav Nachman is saying it's going to be like his Tchum, is a Machlekes in Bin Magbiyah Mitzil Chaveir Komiflagi. The Machlekes is, if someone lifts up a lost object for his friend, everyone agrees, you're right. Everyone agrees to the principle that we said from Shloimy Schwartzberg, that the friend is not going to acquire it when you picked it up for him. Because he said, but the question becomes, the guy who picked it up, the mamali as we call him, did he acquire it? The guy who's picking it up for cannot acquire it, but did he acquire it? That's the machlekes, as the Gemara explains. Mar Savar of Sheishazel Kana. Yeah, the guy who lifted up first, he acquired it because the other guy he's doing it for is not acquiring it. And when he does Hagbah, he's acquiring it. And from him is who the other guy's getting it from. So therefore goes Karag Mamali, goes according to his Tchum. But Rav Nachman held that Loikana. No, the guy who picked it up, he didn't acquire it because, like Rashi says, Lava died to the mikne. I didn't pick it up to acquire it. I don't want any water. I was picking it up for him. Rather, it was for the one that he filled it up for, that guy acquires it when he does Mashiach, when he takes it from me that I filled it up for him. When he gets it, and it comes to him, he wants to acquire it. So he's going to acquire it. Meaning, although we said, that only means, when as long as me, the Hamagbiyah, that I picked it up for him, I picked up that fossil watch for him, we say that he's not acquiring it yet, because I could say, I picked it up for myself. But when I actually give it to him, then he's going to be kinda, as the Mishnah teaches over there in Bab Metzid of Tisma Bey, that if I already gave it to that person, then me, the one who picked it up, says, oh, I already merited first myself. Well, you haven't said anything because you were picking it up for him. If you still have it, you can say, I picked it up myself. But you already gave it to him and you said you picked it up for him, then he acquires it. So Rav Nachman is essentially saying, you're right. It's not his from when I picked it up for him. It's his when I give it to him. Because I never acquired it for myself. So that's the machlekes Rav Nachman and Rav Sheshes regarding whose tchum is it going to have. When you draw the water, the only bavel, and you did it for the intention of giving it to someone else, we have machlekes, is it like the one who, the Ragla Hamamali, so Rav Sheshes, yeah, you did Hagbah, and it wasn't acquired to that person. Nachman says, I'm maskim. That guy didn't acquire when I picked it up for him. But that's not when he gets it. I'm not acquiring it. I didn't pick it up myself. So you're right, he's not claiming it when I picked it up, but when I actually give it to him, then he's going to acquire it when he does Mashiach on that thing. So it's going to have his tchum, and if it's going to be Karagam Meshon Smali, that's my flag of Shidram Nachman regarding this case. I'll love it any time.
So not Nachman until he doesn't do Mashiach.